23rd of May 2004, Sunday afternoon, Brookevale Oval, Manly Sharks. 43rd minute, star new winger Nathan Merritt intercept off Manly 5'8 Andrew Walker near halfway. Flying down the right wing, Merritt gives it off to an even more prized recruit in support, centre Nigel Vagana. Vagana is pulled down just metres from the right corner. Sam Eismunger races to dummy half and swings it left. Kimmorley links with his new 5'8 partner, who professionally finishes the raid in the left corner. Who is this young half? In a year where the halves featured everyone ranging from Greg Bird to Matt Hilder to Michael Sullivan, Russell Aiken, and even Jason Kent, this player is close to being the most household name of all. Yes, it was indeed good old Paul Gallen. Welcome to another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast where we let our talking do the football. Tonight, you'll notice a bit of a different flair, different flavour. I'm here on my lonesome. 24 games, 27 rounds of the 2024 season where we covered matches involving the corresponding or classic matches involving the corresponding team and location as much as we can. I've managed to scare everyone off. It just hasn't worked out this weekend, or this week. So here I am flying solo for this one, and I'm looking forward to it. It might be a bit quicker. 50% of the people may result in 50% of the content. We'll see. So we know at Brookevale, we don't win often. Sharks have a horrid record there. 2004. We hadn't won against Manly since 1996 leading into this match at Brookevale. Of course, we've beaten the Northern Eagles in 2002 there, but that's a different story, a different side. So I'll just lead straight into the form going into this one. As you can see, Sharks 11th versus Manly 13th. Not exactly a classic, not exactly a blockbuster, but important in the context of the season because it did pop the Sharks into 7th at that point in time, which after the disastrous 2003 that result, that is that we win. Spoiler alert, we win this one. But it popped us into the top 8 after a very bleak 03, which was just devastating after the Chris Anderson changeover and making the prelim final in 2002. So the Sharks leading into it, 2 wins, 3 losses. They were pumped at home by the Roosters the week before, 18 to 38. The Roosters, of course, in their third consecutive year where they would make the grand final, ultimately going down to the Bulldogs later that year. They had a good win in Melbourne at the old Olympic Park on a Saturday night, 36-26. They got pumped, unfortunately, at Shark Park against the St George Illawarra Dragons, 42 points to 12, which was highly anticipated and also the largest crowd or ground record at Shark Park and still exists to this day, 22,302, I think it was. We beat the Eels in Golden Point extra time, the first Golden Point match in Sharks history at Parramatta Stadium. Nigel Vagana scoring his first try for the club, being the big signing he was from the Bulldogs at the start of that year, 18-14 that was. And the week before that, we'd beaten the Raiders at home 38-24, which was a big upset after we'd had consecutive big losses to Souths and the Cowboys. Both sides were unfancied. While Manly, heading into it, they had 2 wins, 2 losses and a bye. They had a draw against the Warriors, 42-20. They beat the Dragons actually 21-10, had a bye, lost to the Tigers 22-30, and lost to the Eels 26-32. So they're a side that were capable of scoring some points. And you'll see as we roll into the lineups that you've got the Manly side, a very young Brett Stewart at fullback, wingers Scott Donald, John Hopewadi, the centres Chris Hicks, Albert Torrens, the halves, Andrew Walker, and some guy called Jai Mullane. We were talking about him a few weeks ago playing for the Sharks. It just seems flabbergasting that he could ever play for Manly, but he did. And there he was at starting halfback with Andrew Walker, the former Dragon Rooster, and also rugby union convert. I think he started rugby union, went to league, went back to rugby union and came back again. So finishing his career of sorts with Manly. Whilst their front row was Daniel Heckenberg, Nathan Hollingsworth, and Solomon Hermono, and a back row of Sam Harris, Anthony Watmo, Steve Menzies, and the bench of Ian Donnelly, Kylie Luluai, Luke Williamson, and some guy called Jeff Robson in jersey 19 on debut. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Jeff Robson, future Shark. The coach, a very, very young Des Hasler. Whilst for the Sharks, interesting back line. So we've got David Peachy, as always, ever dependable at fullback in his 200th match. The wingers, Nathan Merritt, David Simmons. The centres, prize recruit Nigel Vagana, pairing with Ryan McGoldrick, who we got ahead of the 2002 season. The halves, wearing number 6, yes, that's right, Paul Gallen with Brett Kimmorley. It was actually his third game, I believe, at 5'8", after having started initially against the Storm a few weeks prior. A front row of Jason Stevens, Matt Hilder at hooker, and Danny Nutley. And a back row of Matt Bickerstaff, Keith Galloway in jersey 19 coming in for Jason Williams on the bench, who dropped off, and Andrew Lomu in jersey 12 moved to the bench, and locked by Phil Bailey. The bench being Andrew Lomu, who we mentioned just before, Sam Eismunger, Reece Williams, Michael Sullivan, and the coach in his first year with the club, Stuart Raper. So both some interesting sides there, some players that have played for both clubs. Some big signings for the Sharks, as mentioned before, Nigel Vagana and Nathan Merritt providing some, I suppose, hope, because we were definitely lacking in the centres and the backline department, 3 after a lot of players left at the end of 02. And obviously, a decent forward pack there with Stevens and Nutley being the props. We'd lost Chris Beattie by this stage, and we had Andrew Lomu was another one of the big off-season signings. Sam Eismunger, obviously a storied gentleman there. Great player, maligned by injury. One of my favourite players of all time, I reckon. And he had a pretty big 04 that we'll talk about a bit later with regards to the context of the season and what he did there. Moving into the match itself, a pretty early try to Paul Gallen in just the 8th minute. We'll bring this one up now. There was some pretty scratchy highlights online, which I'll attempt to show the YouTube viewers, while the Spotify viewers I'll attempt to commentate. So we'll bring this one onto the screen now. And you can see here, Kimmorley from first receiver swings it left. It's a bit glitchy there. Sorry, guys. Getting Peachy there, who gets a pretty quick pass on. And then, unfortunately, the video has frozen there. But Gallen takes that and goes in effectively untouched out wide on the left, bring it round to improve the position. So an early 6-0 lead to the Sharks. And unfortunately for us, Manly hit back straight away. Brett Stewart with an interesting try up the middle there, where Manly got a bit of a roll on. I won't show you the try, but it's a quick interchange of passing, and Stewart went in pretty much untouched under the post from close range, bringing back to 6-all after 13 minutes. Rolling on, the all-important third try was scored by Phil Bailey, of all players, off David Peachy in his 200th match. And then Peachy scored not long afterwards in the 30th minute. As we'll bring that up, 31st minute, after throwing a dummy to get the Sharks 14-6 up at halftime. We'll bring those highlights of those 2 tries up now. As I'll just restart that video for you. Yeah, here we go. So it was Peachy at the line, short ball onto Bailey, scores out wide, which was a nice little reward for that. Bailey hanging out in the centres as he tended to do. And then here you see young Michael Sullivan, jersey 17 there, out to Kimmorley. Kimmorley takes the line on, dummy splits the line and scores basically in the same position that Bailey did there. So unfortunately, Kimmorley unsuccessful with both those kicks from out wide on the right. And the Sharks went to the break 14 points to 6 up. Moving forward into the second half, Gallen in the corner, the aforementioned play, which we'll bring up here, where Manly were looking pretty good with the ball throughout the first half and just couldn't get it. It was a cutout pass by Walker that was picked up nicely by Merritt. Stewart did well to hold him up there. You got, was that Scott Donald and Beaver Menzies shutting him down, almost put him into touch. There's Sammy Eismunger there, who's done well to get there. Swings it left, Merritt out to Peachy, who swings it wide to Gallen. Apologise there. I thought it was Kimmorley that was in there, but gets it out to Gallen, who does a bit of hard work. He's got a bit of work to do still. Unfortunately, the video's freezing there. Gets around the outside of, I believe that was Chris Hicks, to score in the left corner. Again, unfortunately, Kimmorley unsuccessful with the boot from out wide. As we have a look now, rolling forward, shortly afterwards, Sharks had a turnover, and Nigel Vagana did what he does best. Straight off the scrum, beats one defender, beats, I think it was Albert Torrens, and scores out wide. Kimmorley kicked that one, and all of a sudden, 24-6, and the Sharks are absolutely in control. What could possibly go wrong? And unfortunately, a quick flurry of tries brings it back to 24-18. That was tries to Brett Stewart getting his second, and Andrew Walker. Then, unfortunately, in the coverage they've got on YouTube, Simmons' try isn't shown, but I recall I was at this match and he scores in the left corner. Not sure how. I'm not sure. I think it might have been from a bomb or a crossfield kick. Takes it, scores. Kimmorley kicks it, and it's an important 2 points because it gets it back out to a 30 points to 18 lead, which will prove crucial. Here's a replay of the Chris Walker try as it loads now for us. And you'll see he does it, the smallest chip kick you'll ever see, breaks a line, gets it away to the Manly number 12, who gets it back inside to Walker, who was pretty fast still at that point of his career, and scores. And then, unfortunately for us, shortly after scoring to put it back out to a 12-point buffer, you'll see here that Brett Stewart completes the first hat-trick of his career and brings it back within 6. And this is just absolute lightning speed that we were dealing with. And Brett Stewart, he was in his first season very fast. As they swing it wide, Beaver, unfortunately, to Stewart, and he just throws a dummy in, lightning fast, beats David Simmons to the line to get it back to 30-22. Andrew Walker kicking from the sideline to bring it back within 6. And with our history as the Sharks and our history against Manly, I remember distinctly being very worried. And unfortunately, the inevitable did happen in the 78th minute with Sam Harris finishing off this play and then setting up a grand finale. Walker to kick from the sideline where he'd kicked a conversion not long before. So goes down the right, scores in the corner. Brookevale is deafening. And then as I roll forward to the kick itself, and here's Walker lining up from the right touchline. I was at the complete other end of the field, so I didn't have a good view, but the second was off his boot, looking at the big screen, thought this is going through for all money. It starts off on the right as a right foot kicker, curling back to the left, and it just, I'll try and replay that for you, just misses the outside, the right upright, as you're looking from behind the post, just curls away by a millimetre, it seemed. And I thought for all money it was through. If the match went to golden point, we were effectively toast. That's even with my blue, black and white glasses on. Manly was finishing all over us. But the Sharks held on 30 points to 28 in this absolute classic. And I thought this game was available on KO, but I couldn't seem to find it. So, and it's not available on the NRL either. It appears to be that the person that put these highlights together on YouTube, thank you to whoever they are, is a Manly fan, because each Manly try is shown with all the replays and the angles, where the Sharks tries are pretty quickly glossed over. So why, if you're a Manly fan, you'd look at too much at a loss, especially with all their unfortunate, from our perspective, history? I'm not sure, but that's what we're dealing with there. So Sharks got away with a 30 points to 28 win. Going to the talking points, Gallen as 5/8. So it was a 2004 experiment that we thought we wouldn't see happen again, but it did happen again, happening in 2009. So I'll bring up the overall tally of times that he played in 5/8, because it was rather niche for him. Total of 9 times. He had 4 tries and had a win-loss record of 4 wins, 5 losses. So as stated before, in that first game that he played at 5/8, starting 5/8, was against Melbourne earlier that year, 36 points to 26 win at the old Olympic Park. He scored a try in that one. Then he'd play again against the Roosters the following week. No good. We got pumped there. Then scored a double in this one, obviously. Was in and out of the 5/8 position for most of 2004. Played round 12 against the Bunnies, round 14 against Canberra, round 18 against the Warriors, round 19 against the Bulldogs, and then round 20 against the Dragons. And then on one further occasion of his career, a cameo, 2009, final round loss to South Sydney at Shark Park. Unfortunately, he's got a try in that one too, though. I do remember that one. That's where South scored right on full time to break our hearts and win 26-24. But he played 5/8 in that one. Other interesting positions I found Gallen play with it throughout his career. He was starting hooker on one occasion, and that was a loss to South Sydney in 2005, 24 points to 14 at the Sydney Football Stadium. So the rest of them are fairly straightforward: front row, back row, bench, lock. Obviously, he played majority of his career at lock for Sharks. He played 281 matches there, 65 in the second row, 24 front row, 30 off the bench early in his career. So thank you, Paul Gallen, for your versatility. Moving on to Peachy with his 200th. 2004 was another pretty good Peachy season, I thought. And there was starting to be the murmurings that year that the club were looking to move him on. 2005, obviously, that got a lot louder, and it was just an absolute travesty with what happened there, the way that the club handled that and moved him on in favour of David Simmons, who I suppose history proves, but at the time it seemed like the entire league world, especially the Sharks fan base, were not convinced on David Simmons. We love him as a winger. He proved to be a highly accomplished winger. He scored over 100 tries, had a great career with Penrith after he left them, or left us for them as well. But it was not the heir apparent for Peachy, and I'm not sure, but I thought Peachy still had a lot to give. It was proven by the fact that he went over. To his credit, he signed with a team in England that got relegated, went over and played for them second tier, and then eventually in 2006 came back to 2007, came back and played for South Sydney and broke our hearts. And that is one of the big tragedies, having Peachy play at Shark Park, not in the blue, black and white. But on this occasion, showing his skill, his link playing the line there, just silky skills, setting up tries, scoring one himself. Good to see. So thank you, Peach. We'll dedicate more episodes to you. Vagana. So the big signing in the off-season, lauded. I remember I was joking with Franco last week on the show, the old July 1 deadline, or June 30 anti-tampering period. Come July 1, 2003, we announced we were signing Vagana. We were short centres, we were short strike power, and he provided it for us. He scored in his second match for us. He was injury plagued at the start of 2004, so he didn't play until round 5 and a 36 points to 10 loss to the Cowboys. I believe he then got an injury, or might have been his suspension, but he was out the following week, came back, and his second game for the club, he scored his first try, which was one of the most important tries of his career, I'd say, scoring in Golden Point, running close to length of field against Parramatta at Parramatta Stadium. We'll cover that match in depth another time. And then he scored a few more tries, so against Melbourne, against the Roosters, then against Manly. So he had a pretty good strike rate, looking at it, 4, 8, and 12. So he scored 12 tries that year from 18 games, so not a bad return. He was copying a lot of heat, though, for not providing the same try-scoring, I suppose, strike rate that he did at the Bulldogs, but he was outside a very handy halves pairing in essentially Sherwin and Ananasta. And there was the age-old criticism too that Phil Bailey was inside him and not passing him the ball. So 2005, we would experiment with him at 5'8", on a few occasions, and to varying degrees of success, including that 68 points to 6 win over Manly, of all teams, actually. Ironic with this week coming on against Manly, but that was at Shark Park. And looking at his overall tally for the Sharks, he played 61 matches across those 3 seasons that he signed for, originally 04 to 06, 61 matches, 32 tries, and a win record of 45.9%, so 28 wins, 33 losses from those 61 matches. Bit of an unfortunate period there. They obviously made the finals in 05, but snuck in 7th and missed the finals in 04 and 06, affecting that. So thank you, Nigel Vagana. His overall career tally, 240 appearances, 140 tries, playing for the Warriors, the Bulldogs, obviously the Sharks, and South Sydney. He did depart and play in England in there for Warrington in 1997 in there as well, which you'd probably say that shortchanged him another 20-odd appearances there. So very good, well-lauded record. Win ratio of 49.17%. So he had 118 wins, 116 losses, and 6 draws. So there's quite a few draws there. Moving on to the actual side itself, I was joking before about the amount of halves we'd had that year, going through players like Russell Aitken, who debuted that year, all the way through to Jason Kent. Why did that occur? Well, obviously not. Brett Kimmorley was our standout halfback and one of the first, or the first guy on the team sheet each week. He did cop a hamstring injury associated with State of Origin that year, and that had him out for a fair bit of the season. And just as he was about to come back, I believe he didn't play an Origin game. It was in training that he did it. He had the initial 4 weeks off, soft tissue damage. I remember him saying that he'd never had a hamstring injury before, looked like he was going to be good, and then he did it again in training. That set him back. So he missed quite a few matches that year, which resulted in us having makeshift halves pairing. We did open the season with a halves pairing of Greg Bird, Brett Kimmorley, and then things changed from there. The 5'8" position became a bit of a role, both due to form and and I suppose saw us having Paul Gallen taking the 5/8 role here. Looking at the rest of the side too, so we had the big signings of Andrew Lomu, Nigel Vagana, Nathan Merritt, and we had plenty of other interesting players there too. One player that I mentioned that was out was Jason Williams. He was a big, we had essentially signed from prison. Former Raider, I believe he was. I'll just bring his stats up now. But it was interesting times for the club. Bit of an interesting mix of youth and experience. You had guys like Jason Stevens in his second last season there. Obviously David Peachy as well. Some young backline players. David Simmons starting to get plenty of games consistently under his belt and getting a few tries in there too. Keith Galloway coming through. A very young Greg Bird. A very young Reece Williams. So interesting times. And it feels crazy that just looking at other matches we've covered in this period, like 2009, 2010 doesn't seem that long ago, 2011. 04 seems like a lifetime ago, yet there's only, as you can see, a small gap there where you see a lot of these players. Gallen obviously played on till 2019, and Reece Williams in around that kind of Ricky Stewart era, 08, 09, really found his form. So it's weird how time dilates in that regard. But I think one of my favourite players in around there was Jason Kent, the outside back who put his hand up to play halfback and actually did a pretty tidy job for us in the back end of that season in that position when we were without Brett Kimmorley. And looking at the actual season itself, we did have some good wins in there, and it was a lot more promising than 03. And we were heading into the final round. Ironically enough, we're heading into the final round now. We're talking about the permutations of where we'll finish, depending on other results and our own results, anywhere between technically second and fifth, probably most likely fourth, which is good. But heading to the final round of the 04 season, we were a mathematical chance of making the finals. We were playing the Cowboys in North Queensland. We needed to win that. We needed the Newcastle Knights to beat the West Tigers, and we needed the South Sydney Rabbitohs to beat the Canberra Raiders in Canberra. So the Knights held up their end of the bargain, beating the Tigers in Newcastle. We were looking all right with our end of the bargain, leading the Cowboys at times in the match in Townsville. At the same time, South Sydney were playing in Canberra. And I remember the old Fox Sports, they used to show one of the games delayed and the other one live. They actually showed it live on another channel, so you could flick between the two. And twofold, we lost to the Cowboys. They ran away with it late, but also the Bunnies didn't hold up their end of the bargain. They got pumped by 60, I believe it was. So we bowed out and finished, as we'll bring up with the actual final fallout, we finished 11th, and the Cowboys snuck into the finals and played all the way through the prelim after upsetting the Bulldogs first week of the finals, beating the Broncos in Townsville second week, and then controversially losing to the Roosters the following week. But it's not a Cowboys podcast, it's a Sharks podcast. We had some good wins there. We beat the Broncos in Brisbane, first time playing at New Lang Park. Sam Eismunger with a famous double. We came back from 8 points down at halftime, and we'll definitely cover that match on another occasion, but that was an absolute classic. We also beat the Roosters, the absolute standout side that they were. As I said, 3 grand finals in a row, 1 premiership 02, the salary sombrero team, and they probably, I suppose it's their own fault, but they probably should have got away with a few more premierships during that period as well. I know they played the Dogs and lost them in the 04 grand final, but they probably should have beaten the Panthers, and they probably should have done better than they did. Anyway, we beat them 26 points to 12 at the Sydney Football Stadium late in that season as well, which was completely unexpected. So some good results in there. Unfortunately for us, though, we did lose crucial matches late in the season, including at home to Melbourne and at home to Parramatta. I remember that Parramatta match at home where we scored first minute through a Paul Gallen charge down, and then Tim Smith just absolutely ran right in that one. It was his rookie season, and we came away. It wasn't Tim Smith. I thought it was. Stand by. Some guy in his rookie year. We lost 44 points to 22. Just bringing that up again. We had, it was actually Michael Witt and Chris Thorman were the halves there, so I'm not sure what was going on. It was Michael Witt Parramatta went gangbusters, and we were, left sore and sorry. But this side, I think it was more the consistency it was lacking, given the injuries we had to key players in the halves, and the fact that we had new players in there that it took a while to gel. And then 05, we started the season very well. Obviously, we signed Brookevale and a few other players during the off-season, which improved our standing even more heading into the 05 season. But I think 04 was a turning point. Looking at the actual scorecard for this one, Cronulla Sharks 30, Manly Seagulls 28. The good part about it was we had 6 tries to 5. Goal kicking almost came into it, and we did get over the line based on that Brett Kimmorley conversion from the left touch line from the David Simmons try, but almost cost us. But we had try scorers: Gallen with a double, Phil Bailey, David Peachy, David Simmons, Nigel Vagana, while Manly Seagulls a triple, a hat-trick to Brett Stewart, Sam Harris and Andrew Walker the tries. Andrew Walker 4 from 5. Manly finished 13th, and that was 9 wins, 15 losses for them, while us in 11th, 10 wins and 14 losses. So thanks for that. A bit of a quicker episode this week, less deep diving. Chris Kelly was maybe going to join me for this one, but he's crook, so he sends his apologies. He was also just almost as crook on this day in 2004 when he was actually at the match, and he claimed he was quite hungover. So, yeah, hopefully he's feeling a bit better this Sunday, and hope we all are too after the weekend that was against the Warriors last week. For those of you that were there, please send through your thoughts and comments on this one. Did you think that kick was going through? I thought for certain it was. I thought we were gone, but we hung on. And yeah, Manly, Brett Stewart was a very good player, and we learned that day. Thankfully, we came out the right side at the points. Heading forward into next week with the finals, that's locked in. We may well have a Chronicles episode covering a classic week 1 win. Obviously, there's a few of late. There's 96 against the Western Suburbs Magpies. There's the 99, 97, 01, not 02, but 08, 2016, 2015, 2013, and the likes. There's plenty of possibilities for week 1 wins. So we'll have a look at one of those. In the meantime, up, and we'll see you soon. Go Sharks.